So, this is Elizabeth Clare Brewington with Discover Brightside, the video podcast. And we discover new people. And this is January, guys. It's time for you to do some strategy and get yourself aligned. And that's why I have Darren in my studio to give you some great strategic advice. And Darren Frank, he's the president and founder of Anima Strategy. It's the living soul within, the spark that gives life, feeling, and meaning. So, Darren, this is such an exciting name for a strategy agency. So, tell me a little bit more about you and your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So thank you for having me. And that really came from, I think, my love and penchant for introspection and what that can bring to us. I think people often think of leadership as an external activity in the way that you relate to or influence other people. And I think I see it much more as an act of self-leadership and really getting to know yourself. And so I borrowed the term charitably from sort of Jungian archetypes and thought that described a little bit my approach, right? To go deep inside and work outward from that rather than trying to control this external stuff that's just crazy all around us all the time.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you've done quite a lot of amazing work. You've navigated private equity exits. And how did that experience reshape your view of leadership and identity today?
Yeah, I think there's this common thing in life where you really learn the rules of the game after you start playing. And I think there is no substitute in some ways for experience, and maybe that's just me in my 40s talking. But I think that you have a lot of ideas about what progress looks like or what other things in your life look like, and it's really hard to actually know what they're like. I had, for instance, advised a half a dozen people through private equity deals before I founded a company, took that through private equity myself, and even having that front row seat to the whole thing was in no way preparation for doing it myself. It is a very unique kind of a thing. And I think there's a lot in life that you understand as you go, right? Like I didn't understand what it was like to be a parent until I became a parent. Like I had a lot of ideas about parenting, but they were just ideas until I
Yeah.
had a daughter, and then, that goes out the window. So, um, yeah, I think because I've had a different life experience, I've lived abroad a couple of years of my life. I was a practicing attorney for a long time. To try and bring all that together, I feel like it helps me relate to people wherever they are, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you become more human now. How old is your daughter?
Yeah,
How,
she's 15 months right now.
oh,
So
she's really going to rock your world for
yeah,
sure.
we are new in the journey. So it's
Yeah. Oh, well, congratulations.
thank you.
So what advice do you give founders who are leading these high performing teams? And now there's so much pressure with AI and managing pressure, uncertainty, and transition.
Yeah, I think the key word you said there is certainty, right? And I think, we live in an uncertain world, and, I think you could argue that a sensible person is somewhat anxiously wired to that uncertainty, right? And we want things that are stable and foundations upon which to build. And I think often the mistake is looking in the external for that, where you can't really control circumstances. And whatever happens with AI, none of us really know the answer to that. And we can have really good ideas. I think most of the people telling you that AI is going to take over the world run and own AI companies. So I think that there's obviously different opinions for every day of the week.
Yeah.
The only thing you can really control is what you do with what happens to you. And I think that's a general truth of life. And the more that you learn how to tolerate uncertainty instead of seeking certainty, I think the more you are a stable leader for other people because you're really believing in your ability to adapt, which I think is the mother skill in some way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really about you believing in yourself, even as a leader. Even if you look at historic war heroes, who led teams into battle. I mean, when you see some of those movies, you're just going there to get shot or or killed. I mean, so with AI. we never thought that government jobs would go away. And they were always like so cushy, and it was like they never lost their job. They got this pension. America has always been the country where when you retired, you got a pension, you got things. And now our whole world is rocking because AI has come in, and jobs are definitely insecure, but that also makes us have to be better because if you want to live in a world with AI, we will be competing with robots because they will be taking our jobs, they will be taking our businesses, and we as human beings will have to be better than them in order to compete. So about 20 years ago, we all complained about jobs going to India and overseas, and now we're going to compete with AI. So I think America is resilient, it's strong. And we conquered, a lot of things even when jobs went offshore. We still maintained intelligence, and we still maintained our number one spot as leaders. So what advice do you give leaders that, yes, spend more time within, get stronger, believe in yourself that you can do this, but you also have to retool because this world is changing so fast.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting question because even if you thought that, for instance, my wife is a software developer.
Yeah.
So what is she going to do in the face of all of this? And, I think it harkens back to an existential question, and it's sort of a good problem to have, right? We're not really having to figure out how we're not going to starve exactly, right? I think we're probably the first generation where people will die more from the effects of overeating than they will from the effects of starvation, which has been the greatest threat to human existence throughout its history. But and so we're having to ask these questions, which I think are fundamentally questions of meaning. And I think it gets back to something that I think is really foundational for leaders of anything and even of yourself is because we don't know where the external world is going, because we don't know the answers to any of these questions, you don't, you can't know where you're going. So you don't really need to know where you're going. I think we try and
Yeah,
have
right.
this really linear idea. I'm trying to have a business plan on day one. I'm going to follow it to the letter. I'm going to get this valuation at this exit. And it's just a fiction, right? I mean, and the only thing you can do is decide how you're going to get there. And I think I don't really know where I'm going because I don't know what will happen with AI and what that will replace, right? And maybe I'd give you a different answer if I were still in the law firm, which I think is quite a susceptible field to AI, right? But I feel like I know how I'm going to get there. And I think the way that you there are things that are eternal in that sense, which are the building of relationships and the having of community and all of that. And my general opinion about life is you ought to play not to win or lose every little game you play, but so that the people you're playing with will invite you to play more games with them. And
Yeah.
regardless of sort of what happens in the outside world, if I can build a life based on the idea that I'm going to play these games with people that I like, that respect, that are competent, that are high performers, whatever it is that I value in that way, life will be okay, right? Because we'll be able to sort of navigate that as a community. And I think that probably is the only way to sleep at night with this stuff otherwise, right? You get on the rabbit hole of like AI is going to destroy everything and take all of our jobs. I'm
Well,
probably more bearish on AI than most folks, but
Well, I think AI is definitely going to help us because we're going to we are the statistics say we're going to live a lot longer because medicines are better now, and we're going to live longer, like 100 years plus. And in order to live longer, we will need AI and tools like that to get smarter and better. And I find that AI has definitely helped me tremendously, with writing skills and, research, development. Things that used to take me a long time to do are going much faster. So I feel like AI does have a lot of advantages, and it will definitely make us a much more modern civilization. But I think that we have to keep ourselves intelligent because AI is just spitting out old information. I mean, it's got
yeah,
all these libraries, it's got all this knowledge.
can't actually
Yeah,
think, right?
but
Yeah.
it's just giving you old news. And in order for us to make new news, we have to read more, write more, follow old-fashioned traditions to keep ourselves smarter than the machine. Because that's going to be the key is can or otherwise the machine is going to be in the AC room and we're going to be building running those machines. So we have to make up our minds as a human race, how we're going to embrace it. And I think having a coach like you is going to help a lot of leaders because the run of the day and getting burnt out and getting emotional, and having people like you to go to is going to help leaders stay strong in their minds, stay motivated, because as you say, it's all about you, and it's not about what's going on because things are out of control that we have no control over it, but we have control about ourselves and about our own lives. And so tell me a little bit about the coaching practice and how does someone reach you, and how do people find you, and what services do you offer?
Yeah, so in general, obviously the traditional ways, right? Website, LinkedIn, things like that. But really, I try and put a lot of effort in to get to know somebody. I didn't ever work with everybody for a long time. It was very sort of small referral only thing. I think because I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm the right fit for everybody, right? And I think you have to be a certain kind of person to tolerate this. And, when I sit down with people, I used to tell them, like, hey, I'm not exactly a cheerleader, right? My job is kind of hold up a mirror. And if you move, I'm going to move the mirror and sort of force you to be introspective and do the work. And if, you are not acclimated to that kind of thing, potentially you're looking for affirmation, right? Which in that case, potentially a dog would be a better choice. So it's just not the way that I practice, and I don't think everybody's here for that, which is totally fine. So I generally try and get to know somebody, figure out where they are, because I also don't think, yeah, I never had one process. I never had, okay, I have all these tools in the toolkit, and how do I take bits and pieces of that and meet you where you are? It's sort of like recommending a book to somebody, right? I read a lot. I read about 100 books a year. I love books. To your point, I think I've been going back and reading the classics a lot lately. But it's not, if you said, well, what's the best book for me?
Yeah.
I can't answer that, right? I have to ask you a lot of questions to figure out where you are, sort of where on the path are you? Where do you want to go? Like I have an idea of what success is like for me. I don't have any right to tell you what that is for you. And I think, there's a lot of people that I don't or wouldn't want their kind of success, and they're perfectly happy with it and good for them, right? I want people to feel that. But I think there is a process of discovery and a process of figuring that out for yourself and sort of playing your own game by your own rules, right? Where I think a lot of this is given to us. So with all of that, I try and be sort of choosy on the way in, slow on the way in, tend to work with people for a long period of time, tend to work with very few clients and, just really be able to get into their head. And like partially I have to want to do that, right? Every client I work with takes up a certain amount of permanent mental space. And so, it's a very old-fashioned process. I don't have a super long questionnaire, right? Like we sit down and talk and I want the long story to everything. I want the context. I can't figure out in 10 minutes if we could work together. I need a couple hours. So
No, it's true. Even with anything, I think having fewer clients and then you can devote your time to them, than to just take on more and then you're not giving your best. So there you have it. Contact Darren. I'll make sure that his link to his website is available in the comment section below. Write us a comment. Tell us what are your challenges today as a leader, and what is it that you need from a coach, so that we know how to help you find the right resources. And definitely make sure that you get in touch with him and find yourself, because that's very important to be a better leader. So thank you so much for this interview. And would you like to say anything before I close us out?
just thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here and happy to chat with anybody that wants to reach out. So please do.
All right. Well, thank you.